and then this will give us a few minutes while a few other people join. But Access CNY, along with some other local agencies, are putting together a workforce rally that's tomorrow. I'm going to share my screen, just so you should be seeing the flyer for it. So Access CNY, New York Disability Advocates, ARC of Onondaga, and 2 other local ARC chapters are hosting the event. Originally, it was going to be an in-person event, and then we decided we really weren't comfortable having an in-person event, so we're doing a virtual rally tomorrow. State Senator John Mannion, who's the head of the DD committee in Albany, is one of our main speakers. We'll have Assemblywoman Hunter and Assemblyman Sturpey also speaking, along with family members, self-advocates, direct support professionals. Our own Drew Nordmark, our vice president, is going to represent the Central New York Disability Advocacy Group. So that's tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and it's being streamed on multiple Facebook pages, including the Access CNY page, and we're also going to stream it on the Central New York Disability Advocacy Group Facebook page as well. And after this meeting, I'll send out the links to those pages just so that folks have them if they're interested in following along on the event.
Now, will some direct support professionals from Access and other organizations speak?
There are some direct support professionals speaking. That was one of the hardest parts to do, just because of the crisis in the workforce. Getting someone who could step out away from their job to be part of the rally was difficult. But each organization has 1 or 2 people speaking, so there are a couple of DSPs who will be there.
Oh, that's good.
Wonderful.
And thank you, Drew.
You're welcome. I'll try and do you proud.
Oh, you will.
All right, so Deb, it looks like we're about where we're going to be for this meeting. I mentioned maybe before a few people joined that we are recording this meeting, and our hope is to share it on the webpage of the Central New York Disability Advocacy Group. That page right now resides on the Access CNY website. So after this meeting, I'll send that link along with the information about the rally, so folks have it. And with that, Deb, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So we are very pleased today to have Christine O'Brien from Syracuse University FACE Center. And as I was saying before, everybody joined, I'm not that familiar with the FACE Center, but, just looking at their mission statement, I think it's perfect to have her speak to us today, because the mission is to promote meaningful systems change, improve outcomes for students with disabilities ages 5 to 21, and build the capacity of districts and community agencies to improve family and community engagement. So I will now turn it over to Christine, but we're delighted to have you, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to just share my screen quick for you guys, just so you can, let's see. Do you see my screen? I'll ask you that, because I can't see you guys right now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So yeah, thank you for inviting me. So yes, my name is Christine O'Brien, and I'm from the School Age Family and Community Engagement Center at Syracuse University. We are actually, I'll just kind of go through this. We are a grant-funded program through New York State Education, and we are housed at Syracuse University. Some of you, I know Drew, I know you, Karen Adams, have been very familiar with me. We used to be the Syracuse University Parent Assistance Center, or I was employed by them years ago for about 10 or 11 years through a different grant from New York State Ed. But in 2019, there was a new structure to the educational partnership. So what you see here is kind of the educational partnership as it stands today. So we have the Office of Special Education, and then we have technical assistance partnership. So we have many different technical assistance partners that help us develop our trainings, help us with coaching and resources and referrals to educational organizations, family members, community agencies on all aspects of the special education process in New York State. So you'll see here as we kind of go down, we've got the Office of Special Education, Technical Assistant Partnership Centers, or the TAPs, the Regional Partnership Center, and I'll get into each of these, but mostly focus on mine, which is the School Age Family and Community Engagement Center, or the SA FACE Center. In the world of special education, we always use acronyms, so thus the FACE Center. And then, as Deb just mentioned, we also have the Early Childhood Family and Community Engagement Center. So I'll just go backwards just for a quick second to reintroduce myself. I'm Christine O'Brien. I am a mom of a child with a disability, and what I kind of bring to the table, especially for family members, is that parent perspective. I don't ever claim to walk in the same shoes that they're walking in, but I walk in similar shoes. My son was premature, so I was working in the world of EI, and then in the transition to preschool, to school age, and then all of those transitions in school age, right? From elementary to middle school to high school. And what I had to do kind of for myself initially is really learn how to be the best advocate I could be for him, and in tune give him some skills to be his own self-advocate. And so what I did prior to this position was really just kept going to lots of different trainings. My son did go to Jumonio, which is the inclusive preschool here in Syracuse, which gave me so much information and so much support that I decided that I needed to share that support and the knowledge that I had for advocacy and the special education process with others. So back when my son was, I think, in first grade, I joined the grant with New York State Ed, which was the Parent Technical Assistance Center. And then I was hired for the School Age Faith Center about 2 years ago. So I'll just give you, Deb kind of talked about our mission, but really our main focus is to support and empower schools, families, and communities to improve equity, access, and opportunities for all students with disabilities. So really making sure that we're educating the school districts, the families, and the community agencies that work with the families to understand that this is a collaborative approach. Everyone should be involved in the child's education. So that is one of the big differences from our Parent Technical Assistance Center, that I'm able to work more with school districts, families, and community agencies, and not just the family unit, which is what I did at the Parent Technical Assistance Center. So that's a little bit of the difference between the two. I know Karen asked me to kind of bring that up a little bit. But one of the things I wanted to highlight and encourage, and Deb, I can send you this blueprint if you want to send it out to your members. But the main focus of our work surrounds this blueprint for improved results for students with disabilities. This is from New York State Ed, and this was developed with many different stakeholders in the world of special education back in November of 2015. And this really drives our work, and this should be driving the work of the educational organizations as well. And some of them, I won't read all of them, but some that really hit home for me when I'm thinking about students with disabilities and families is the very first one here that says students are engaged in self-advocacy and are involved in determining their own educational goals and plans. So I think of self-determination plans like my son has when I think about this, because the main focus is if we can help the families and the students with self-advocacy skills and help them understand the process of the IEP and the special education process, then they can start to be more actively engaged and involved in that. One of our big focuses in a training that we do provide is a series on student-directed IEPs, where we're hoping to get students and families more engaged in the meetings, but even more so students engaged in helping to develop some of their goals and some of their accommodations and services that they think work best for them. And we help them by giving them the tools and the strategies to learn about those skills and then how to present those skills at a meeting. The second blueprint is parents and other family members are engaged as meaningful partners. And that's one of the biggest reasons that the Regional Partnership Center, that the School Age and Early Childhood Faith Centers were developed, is to help the families understand that they should be engaged as meaningful partners. One of the big focuses of a lot of the trainings and the work that we do within the school districts is helping give strategies to the school districts, to the teachers, to the administrators, to know how to meaningfully engage the parents in that process, to make that process welcoming for the parents and working again as partners with them. You'll see a lot of the other ones are really more school-based, where teachers are designing effective, specially designed instruction for students with disabilities to access and participate in the general education curriculum. They're providing research-based instruction and learning strategies, school-wide multi-tiered systems of behavior and academic supports, as well as high quality inclusive programs and activities. So not just inclusive programming within the academic setting, but in the extracurricular setting, in the clubs, in the sports, and all of that that students are engaged with in school. One of the biggest things that I always talk about is our students that have a disability, that have an IEP, are general education students first and foremost. So they're following all of the guidelines of the general education population, but have that added extra services through their IEP. So they need to be included in everything within the school. And then the last one talks about that the schools are providing the students with disabilities career and development opportunities and work-based learning. So that's helping that student, once they're in high school, prepare for what they want for life after high school. So it's about helping that student form a great bond, having the parents form a great bond and be able to be successful and progress in their academics, but also in what they want for life after high school. So preparing that for their post-secondary world as well. But I always like to show you this blueprint because I don't think a lot of people have seen this blueprint before. And really this is, again, is what I said, drives all of the work at the Regional Partnership Center and the School Age and Early Childhood FACE Centers. So we really work very closely within these parameters, as Deb said earlier, to help build that capacity for school districts, families, and community agencies to work together. So within our Regional Partnership Center, we have specially designed instruction specialists, literacy specialists, behavior, special education, culturally responsive, transition team, and a system change facilitator. So at the School Age FACE Center, I work very closely when I'm in school districts with these specialists, and then in turn, a lot of times these specialists help me with my regional trainings and co-present with me, because again, the more unified front that we can give between professionals and families working together and delivering that same message, I think that's key in helping to build that meaningful relationship for families. Again, we provide a lot of information to families, educational organizations, and community groups. What I'd like to highlight kind of, and I'm going to go here to the School Age FACE Center, I am the resource and referral specialist. So I do a lot of regional trainings, and I'll give you the link at the end of this presentation where you can go to see all of the trainings that we offer throughout the course of the year. When I showed you that hierarchy earlier, the technical assistant partnership, so the technical assistance centers help create those trainings so that all across New York State, any SA FACE center that you might go to within New York State will be providing very similar trainings based on the laws and regulations of New York State. So it's kind of unified in that way. So those are regional trainings. We also at the School Age FACE Center do targeted professional development within schools. And then we do some intensive work within schools that have been identified by New York State Ed as schools that are maybe a focus district or a coordinated district that need additional help in certain areas. So we're part of that team that goes into school districts now with the Regional Partnership Center to help teachers understand the importance of family engagement and meaningful partnerships with families. We also offer technical assistance to families. So families can email me, can call me. We still have, for lack of better terms, I'll say a call center, but we're all remote in the moment since March of 2020, where we are still able to help parents understand the process, field question for parents, and provide them with resources and referrals for specialists that they may need to see, or just give them advice and sometimes hand-holding on how to be more meaningfully engaged and how to open the lines of communication with their school district. So that's
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, do you also help develop programs if you see a need?
Give me and develop programs within school districts, or give me an example.
Yes, or within a specific area, like if you saw a need in, I'll just take an example from a real life experience. You maybe spoken with Karen about this, like when her son was being bused and the bus had to get stopped and the police came on the bus. They didn't know how to interact with people with autism And she
Yes.
ended up putting together a program for the bus.
Exactly. So, yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that I will say is a lot of our work now is focused and has to be vetted by New York State. But when we
Okay.
see a need like that, we
Okay.
approach the state and we approach
Okay.
our TAPs, our technical assistant partners, and say, there's a need for this in our district. How can we help facilitate that? So yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Everything that we're working on is as long as it's school-based, which that would be school-based because that's busing for school-age children. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, and I know Karen does a great job with that. I know she's done it in my
Yes, and I
son's.
know that was years ago, and I didn't even know if that was still implemented, but I know situations.
Yep, I believe so.
arise,
And what we do, we also help coordinate here locally. We get a lot of the community agencies together and talk about what the needs are in the community and how we can best support that too for families. So I think we do that about every quarter. We have kind of a round table.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for letting me ask that, since my child is definitely past school age.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Good. Okay. And then we do have, as I mentioned, the Early Childhood Face Center that does all of the things that I just discussed the School Age Face Center does, but they're focusing more on assisting families and like the preschools and the daycare centers and community groups in regards to their focus on children birth to age 5. So we have a face center that really works in that realm. And then I pick the students up at the school age. So kindergarten on up to age 21.
I have another question.
All right, excellent.
Is that the same as, because I'm learning about you also, as Deb is. Is that also,
Yeah.
where does the early intervention program fit in, or is that what that is now?
No, so early intervention is completely separate from what we do, but we help families that are going through early intervention to understand that process. But early intervention is still with the county. So that's still, that's not, what you might remember from years ago was the Early Childhood Direction Center. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the old grant. And then in 2019, that kind of, and I have to say they became, but that grant was no longer in place, but the Early Childhood Face Center kind of took on the role of what the ECDCs used to do.
Okay, all right,
so just to kind of give you that comparison.
Yeah, so not that long ago.
No, nope, 2019, yeah. Okay. So one of the things too that Karen asked me to kind of just go through with you guys today, so I wanted to just give you a little information, is talking about how to prepare for back to school. So not that I'm going to go through a whole thing on back to school, but again, going back to that blueprint, I think really preparing for back to school is helping families as well as community agencies understand that collaboration between families and schools. So there's so much research out there that shows us that when families and schools can work together, it helps the students to achieve higher learning and really helps to secure their services throughout school age in their special education, so in their IEP, in their individualized education program. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of just give you and just sort of a little bit of a shout out is, as we're preparing for back to school, just giving you some key thoughts or ideas that I wanted you to think about in regards to how to communicate with your child's team or even with your child's caregivers. And, you know, the first main focus is realizing and making sure that we think about our child's teachers as allies in their development, because we do want to work closely with them. And by realizing that, we need to make sure that we're keeping the lines of communication open. And trust me, I understand from all of the parents I talk to, sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. But if we can keep the lines of communication open and talk about challenges that we may be having early on with the school districts, then that just helps us to form and build that relationship and work towards solutions together. So really taking the lead on beginning the conversation. I tell parents all the time and guardians, please let the school district know how it's best to communicate with you. Do you prefer email? Do you prefer a phone call? And in the same turn, I tell school districts and teachers, let the parents know what the expectations are. So if you're a school district and you say, you know, the best way to communicate with the teacher is via email and they will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Let's say that's the example. Then that's great. You've set the expectation, the parents know what to expect. When the parents don't know what to expect and they've emailed the teacher and they don't hear a response within 5 or 6 hours, they might start to get concerned or start to get eager and anxious. But if the expectations are set as to how communication is going to be worked through, then that helps alleviate some of those communication mishaps, right? I think we also need to make sure that we know the certain questions to ask, share our concerns. I'm going to send Deb a sheet that goes through a lot of different questions to ask, like at an IEP meeting, or to talk to the teacher about students' development. So I think that will be a resource that will be helpful for you guys. Also, let the teachers know, as family members, we know our students and our children best. So let them know if there's anything unusual happening, and if students are taking new supplements, or if they're on any new medications that might be affecting their sleep patterns, right? If there's been any family illnesses, if there's been divorce or family dynamics have changed at all, not giving full details, of course, but just letting your school team know that there may be some situational differences in the household right now that they might want to be aware of, that might help them to understand why there may be behaviors, negative or positive, within the school district during certain times. So being very open when you can with the school district about those types of things. Also remembering that our kids' teachers are caregivers of their own lives as well. So we need to be respectful of that time frame. That's why I talk about when you're doing open communication and letting them know when it's best to reach you, making sure that you ask the same question. So if I email you, will you get back to me by 5 that day, or might it not be till the next morning? And again, that just sets that expectation for effective communication, and it doesn't lead to miscommunication. And really, I think the biggest thing to think about is letting our students and our children know that we're operating as a team with the school and with the caregivers. So making sure that our students understand and our children understand that we feel school is important. We feel that team approach is important, because then I think they see us working with the team, and then they feel more comfortable in working with their teachers and taking demands from their teachers when they need to. So this is just one of the things that I'll send Deb that might help in preparing for back to school. It's called an All About Me. And this is really just something that I think would be great for family members, and maybe even their care coordinators, as well as the student themselves, kind of look through some of this. And this could be a sheet that they turn into their teachers on the first day of school, or maybe even a couple days before, about what are my strengths, what are my needs. What are my needs in the environment? Are there material needs that I need? For example, does a student need a word processor, an iPad to communicate? All of those types of things. When you think about the IEP and you think about certain accommodations, what are some things that we as family members can share with the team that will help a new teacher understand our student best? I like to use the word spin when I talk about my own child, which is he has great strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. And if there's a need that is attached to a goal or attached to accommodation, if the people that are working with my son know his strengths, his preference, and his interests, then they can better meet his need, because they're going to be working based on what his strengths are. So we always want to look at the strength based of our students to accommodate their needs. And I think that's kind of a big piece that I could give all of you on heading back to school. I know some students maybe were in person last year, were in a hybrid, or some were fully remote. So just being patient with that transition. But really, if we as family members and the students themselves can share their strengths and preferences, hopefully that's going to make the transition a little bit easier, going back to, full 5 days in person if they weren't there before. I mentioned earlier that we offer a lot of workshops and trainings, and this website, and I'll give this PowerPoint, Deb, so that you have it, but so that you guys can have this link. And that's where you can go on and you can see any of the upcoming trainings that we have. Some of the trainings that we do offer may be specific to a school district, because everything is listed in the same My Learning Plan. So you'll just see, if you're not part of that school district, you wouldn't be able to register for that. But if you ever see trainings that you can't register for because they're specific to a school district or to a professional field, always reach out to me and we can see if that's a training that we could provide also regionally. And then this is our email address if you would like to join our listserv to be informed on what those trainings are. We also send out a lot of the different updates when regulations are changing within New York State. So our listserv is safacecenter@syr.edu. And how about any questions? I'll stop sharing so I can see you guys again.
Christine, what, for both the
Yes.
early intervention side and the SA side, what are some of the more common issues that are brought to you that need resolution?
Yeah, so I would say more so because I only work for the school age FACE Center, but I do, obviously get some information. A lot of times, especially in the preschool realm, is not being able to get a child into the programming that they want, right? And that's based on the capacity of the program. So our preschool team really works with those families to help them understand what other programs may be available, maybe if there just needs to be teacher and services coming into the home. But a lot of times I would say that's probably one of the biggest questions that they get in the preschool realm. The other big question that we work very closely with the Early Childhood FACE Center is helping parents and family members understand that transition from preschool to school age. Because a lot of times, when our kids are in preschool, there's so much more communication because we're picking the kids up. We can go into the building. Well, we used to be able to go into the building and do all of that. And students are really considered just a student with a disability at that point. When students get to school age, we have to reevaluate to make sure that the IEP still is necessary for them. And sometimes kids in preschool have made some great gains where we, in the school district's realm, they don't see the need to continue the IEP into school age. So that's where we help families to understand that and to really work on what other options are available at school age in regards to academic intervention support, reading support, all of those general education initiatives that may not be part of an IEP. That seems to be one of the biggest questions I think that we get at the School Age FACE Center when families are moving into kindergarten. It's just understanding the process is a little bit different. I would say at the School Age FACE Center, a lot of the calls that I receive are just parents advocating for services for their kids, right? Especially when maybe a school district says, you know what, well, your child was receiving 3 30-minute speech sessions, but they're making progress, so we're going to reduce that to 1. And we have to always remember that the IEP is about the educational benefit, and it's about how well they're doing in that educational setting. So if they're doing really well in the educational setting, we as family members sometimes don't see that progress at home as readily as they do in school. So really kind of helping the families to understand the dynamic of the child at home and the child at school and how that works. A lot of times the school districts are tied to least restrictive environment, free appropriate public education. And, as I said earlier, it's, we need to be on par with our typically developing peers. So when we have an IEP, we may be a little bit lower because we need those accommodations because our disability impacts our educational benefit. So the IEP isn't in place to necessarily exceed our general education peers, but it's to help level the playing field and then progress from there. So I think those are some of the big questions. I have to say very honestly, Matt, most parents that call us don't call us to say, hey, my school district's doing a great job and I'm really happy with everything, right? So we get those challenging calls. We get those challenging situations when families are trying to advocate for services. And sometimes when they don't understand what services can or can't be provided. So I think that's some of the biggest areas that we see. Something that I focus a lot on is the post-secondary transition world because my son is now 18. So I really work with families of high school students, even like 8th grade on up, on all of the different diploma and credential options available, all of the different pathways to graduation, to receiving a local diploma for students with disabilities, and a lot of the great career development, occupational studies credentials that are out there, just educating families on understanding all of that, so that their child has kind of a smooth transition to their post-secondary life after high school.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have another one. Do you, you only go to 21, so are you really involved in the transition out of high school to
We
the
really
adult
aren't,
world?
in regards, I mean, in regards to providing the family with resources of what that next step is, but no, we are strictly New York State Ed, so we are strictly school age.
But you do provide the resources, because that's.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. We have a training called Navigating the Adult World, and we partner with a lot of agencies, OPWDD, the Office of Mental Health, you know, Access VR, all of those agencies, to give the family and to help them understand. And that's part of what I do as far as the post-secondary transition planning, is give families a lot of resources and what are your next steps, kind of like while your child is still, you know, a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, maybe a super senior, what are the stages and what things should you be doing? But because I'm more of the specialist in regards to school age, I give them those resources and referrals. And because my son's 18, I know a lot of that myself right now.
Right.
Where, you know, like 10 years ago, I was working more with elementary families because that's what I was living with my son.
Sure. I'm just thrilled to hear that you provide such a comprehensive package, so to say. Here you go, because the adult world is a scary place when people aren't prepared.
It absolutely is. And you know what? And I reach out to so many people and all of those agencies that I refer people to for my own son right now as well, because he just turned 18. So, you know, that is the one thing. So we really, you know, when I talk about the post-secondary transition world, when I'm doing all of my trainings, it's really about at school age, what are we doing to help prepare them for that? And then I end with, and now here are all the resources if your child is like, let's say 16 or 17, who you need to start connecting with once they exit high school.
Yes, because I think so often families either don't want to, it's probably a combination, don't want to, aren't willing to, but don't have the ability unless often they're handed. This transition sneaks up on you if you're not prepared. I've seen it happen a million times, and that's hard.
And you know what, Drew? And that's, if you go back to the blueprint that I showed earlier, the very last one is that school districts are now, you know, New York State is requiring school districts to really hone in on those CDOS, those career development occupational studies learning standards, as a K-12 initiative, so that families understand that early on, because you don't want to be a 17 or 18-year-old and just learning about that. You want to know it, you know, again, I knew about it when my son was younger, but didn't have to really be actively engaged in it until he was probably in 6th or 7th grade. Then I was really, you know, putting my feelers out there for what I needed to know for him.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, Christine. I know for myself, it was extremely informative, and, you know, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with, you know, collaboration and teamwork, and I certainly like, you know, spin. Like
the spin is my favorite. Yeah, and you know, and that's the biggest thing. And I have to say, you know, in regards to assisting families, you know, when I do a regional training, you know, we do regional trainings. I give family, you know, all the, you know, it's an hour and a half or 2 hours of learning about diploma and credential options. But then we do a lot of follow-up. We do a lot of resource sharing after, to kind of build that capacity, because our hope is we're giving you the knowledge and the skills to be an advocate, but then we want to check in with you from time to time and see how things are going. So that's, you know, kind of building that capacity and helping along the way.
Well, I'm sure you see it at your workshops when you offer all this information and the parents' heads are spinning. that's when,
Yes,
that's when they're going to bombard you with the questions.
exactly,
So-
exactly. And, you know, and I will say one of the silver linings, I think, of having to go fully remote and do so many things on like a Zoom platform or a Teams platform, I've noticed more parent participation in my trainings, because it's very easy to get dinner on the table for the kids and come to the other room and get on a Zoom call for an hour and a half, as opposed to driving 25 minutes to a location, having to get care for the kids and driving back. So one of the silver linings, I think, of COVID in this world is I've seen greater participation in my trainings, and school districts have even shared that they've seen greater participation with family members attending the Committee on Special Education meetings, because it is more convenient. They've seen a lot more where spouses or grandparents or aunt and uncles can join in that CSE meeting to assist the one parent, because they can do it from their own home on a half an hour break, of one of those silver linings of this Zoom world.
Yes, I think we've all learned Zoom very well.
Zoom, virtual, whatever. I'm like,
Exactly.
oh, yeah. Excellent.
So thank you again. And if you
Yes,
send
thank you for
me
having
the
me.
presentation, then I'll certainly forward it on to, you know,
Yep,
everybody
great.
in the
I
group.
will send, and I'll send you the blueprint. It's just, you know, a resource that you can just share with your members. It'd be
That
great to
sounds
have.
great. And
All right.
thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Okay.
And I guess
Bye-bye.
just by the rest of the folks, I just want to remind everybody that our next meeting will be October 27th. Same time, last Wednesday at 4 p.m. And we hope to have another guest speaker, so more to come on that. I don't know, does anybody else have anything that they want to bring up or anything? Because we still have a few minutes. Nope.
I don't think so. It was just very interesting, and
Yeah, it was
I
actually,
think October's will be very interesting also.
yeah, so more to come on that, but, and just, if you, I don't know if does everybody have the Facebook link? Because I can also send that out. I'll just, you know what, I'll just send it out again, because I know that, you know, we now have a logo. We have a, like a one-page sheet talking about the group. So I'll just send those things out to everybody too, but it's nice to see everyone. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Enjoy the
your
heat.
vacation, yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks.
and we'll talk
Bye.
soon. Take care.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.